In this first story, the submersible Aquila was already descending when the crew realized something was wrong, because the ocean outside the viewport wasn't getting darker the way it should. It was getting thicker, like the light itself was being swallowed unevenly, and Mark, the pilot, joked nervously that the water looked wrong while his hands tightened on the controls. The mission simple on paper: inspect an abandoned deep-sea mining rig lost decades ago. But the deeper they went, the more the sonar began returning soft, delayed echoes, as if something massive was answering from far away and choosing not to reveal its shape. And when they finally saw the rig resting upright on the seafloor instead of collapsed like the record said it would be, the mood inside the sub shifted from curiosity to quiet fear, because the structure's lights were on, glowing faintly in the black, powered by nothing, untouched by time. And as they maneuvered closer, the radio crackled to life with a voice that wasn't theirs, calm and distorted, repeating a single phrase over and over: "You're late," until it cut out completely, leaving only the hum of the sub and the sound of their own breathing. And that's when the pressure alarms chimed, not blaring, just politely warning them that the surrounding water density had changed, which made no sense, because water doesn't thicken like that. And Mark tried to pull back, but the sub barely moved, like it was sinking into something heavier than liquid, something that resisted motion. And through the viewport, they saw shapes drifting between them and the rig. Not creatures exactly, more like shadows folding and unfolding, as if the dark itself had layers. And the mining rig's main hatch slowly opened on its own, releasing a faint glow that illuminated the nameplate, revealing a final log etched into the metal: "Escape impossible below this depth." And suddenly the radio came back, clearer this time, the same voice now speaking directly to them, explaining in a detached tone that the crew of the rig had discovered a pocket of something ancient beneath the seafloor, a place where pressure crushed not just bodies but intent, trapping anything that entered in a state between movement and stillness, and that the ocean learned from them, learned how to hold things forever. And as the voice faded, the sub's lights dimmed one by one, power draining without reason, until the only illumination left was the rig's glow, waiting, patient. And when Surface Command finally received the Aquila's last transmission hours later, it was just Mark's voice, calm and resigned, saying, "It's not dark down here anymore," before the signal flattened into silence. And the sub was never recovered, not because it was destroyed, but because nothing that goes that deep ever truly leaves. In the second story, the research vessel Caldera lost contact with its autonomous deep-sea drone just 12 minutes after deployment, which wasn't unusual by itself, except the drone kept transmitting data long after it should have been crushed by pressure, sending back steady readings from a depth no manned craft was rated to survive. And when the crew traced the signal, they realized it wasn't drifting or sinking anymore. It was stationary, hovering just above the ocean floor, as if resting. And against protocol, the captain authorized a manned descent to retrieve it, telling himself it was just a sensor glitch. But as they went down, the water around them grew unnervingly calm. No currents, no particulate drift, just a hollow stillness that made the sub feel like it was suspended in air instead of water. And when the drone finally came into view, its lights were still on, pristine, undamaged, positioned perfectly upright, as if it had been placed there deliberately. And the live feed from the drone suddenly activated on their monitors, not showing the outside like it should, but replaying footage from hours earlier. Footage of the Caldera's deck, the crew standing around laughing before launch. Except one thing was wrong. There were more people in the frame than there should have been. Figures standing just beyond the edge of the lights, unmoving, watching. And as the feed looped again and again, the sub's onboard clocks began to desync, seconds stretching into minutes, minutes collapsing into seconds, until time itself felt unreliable, and a soft vibration traveled through the hull, rhythmic, almost like a pulse, syncing with the crew's heartbeats, making it hard to tell where their bodies ended. And the sub began. And when the captain ordered an ascent, the engines responded normally. The gauges said they were rising, but the depth indicator never changed, locked at the same impossible number. And then the drone's feed switched one last time, now showing the sub from the outside, hovering in the dark, surrounded by nothing, while a line of text appeared across the screen in the drone's system font, something it was never programmed to display: "Observation complete." And in that moment, the crew understood the drone hadn't failed. It had been held there, studying them, learning their movements, their voices, their sense of time. And when Surface Command finally received data from the caldera days later, it wasn't a distress call or coordinates, just a clean, uninterrupted data packet containing thousands of hours of footage, all from deep below, all focused on human faces staring into the dark, unaware they were being watched, and the ocean kept the rest. In the third story, the black box from submersible Orion was never supposed to be found because it had been logged as destroyed during a catastrophic trench dive 10 years earlier, yet it resurfaced on its own one morning, floating upright in open water hundreds of miles from the dive site, its casing intact, still warm. And when recovery crews brought it aboard a research vessel, they noticed the first impossibility. The internal clock said the box had stopped recording only 6 minutes ago, and when the playback began, it didn't start with alarms or panic, but with calm, routine chatter, the Orion's crew speaking casually as they descended into a depth no human had ever survived, joking about coffee and schedules, as if the pressure meters weren't climbing past fatal limits. And as the recording continued, the voices slowly changed, not in volume or emotion, but in spacing, with longer pauses between words, breaths stretching unnaturally, until one crew member asked why the ocean sounded closer than before. A question followed by silence so long it felt intentional. And then a new sound emerged beneath the static, a low rhythmic vibration that matched the crew's speech patterns perfectly, echoing them half a second late like a delayed reflection. And when someone pointed this out, the captain ordered a systems check, only for every sensor to report normal conditions, while the audio grew denser, layered with faint repetitions of their own voices, speaking words they hadn't said yet, sentences arriving before the mouths formed them, as if the ocean was predicting them, practicing them. And the most disturbing moment came when the crew stopped speaking entirely, because the black box kept going, continuing the conversation without them, using their voices flawlessly, discussing things the real crew would never know, like the color of the control room lights after power failed, or the exact second each heartbeat stopped. And then, near the end of the recording, a final voice appeared that didn't belong to anyone on the manifest. Calm, patient, explaining that the trench wasn't a place, but a process, that at certain depths, the ocean no longer observed time in a straight line, and anything that entered was slowly learned, copied, and stored, not as bodies, but as patterns. And when the real crew finally did scream brief, distant, already fading, the black box recorded something else instead. The ocean answering back, filling the silence with perfect human speech. And when the playback ended aboard the recovery ship, no one spoke, because the last timestamp was still counting upward, and buried beneath the final layer of static was a soft, familiar sound, the steady hum of a vessel descending, somewhere far below, still talking, still being learned, and still not finished.